Arham.
तो डॉक्टर अनिल जैन आप शुरू करिए। और कचारा साहब से निवेदन है कि वो अपना नवकार मंत्र से शुरुआत करें, उसके बाद अनिल जैन एक और करेंगे।
नमो अरिहंताणं नमो सिद्धाणं नमो आयर्याणं नमो वज्रायणं नमो लोहे सव्वसाहुणं ऐसो पंचणं कालो पावनाशनं मंगलाणं च सर्वेसिं परमं हवै मंगलम् परमं हवै मंगलम्।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद साहब। डॉक्टर अनिल जैन, हाँ आप जरा अनम्यूट करिए और भंडारी साहब का इंट्रोडक्शन दे दीजिए आप।
नमस्कार, जय जिनेन्द्र। Dr. Bhandari, Narendra Bhandari does not need any introduction. Everyone knows him very well. He is the force behind this forming Jain Academy of Scholars, and he is well-known scientist, space scientist. Whenever there is any big movement, whether this is launching of Chandrayaan or Mangalyaan, we always see him on the television. So he does not need any introduction. By the way, he is very well known to everyone. He has written many books and many articles, and now he is 100% involved in religious and spiritual activities. And the force behind all of us. He is motivating us to do some creative work under Jain Academy of Scholars. I think it is sufficient. And now this is to Dr. Bhandari, please.
Oh, thank you very much. Today I thought I will start talking about matter, because matter is where Jain philosophy and science both meet. This is a subject of investigation in both, and I think all the scholars present here, those who work on science and Jainism, have one time or the other worked on matter and written articles and new insights, etc. So I'm very happy that I have lots of experts on Jain concept of matter in the audience. Kachara Sahab has written lots of papers, and so is everybody else. Dev Kumarji is there. I mean, almost everybody has written. So I thought this is a good point to discuss. We are about to finish our first year of existence, this JAS. And what I realized it, and I talked about this last time in my talk on Loka, is that we are not able to connect to science. We are working in isolation, and that's why, although we have lot of important concepts in Jain philosophy, we don't make any impact on the world. We have our own little group, and we are happy that we know so much because of the Tirthankar's Upadesh, and we feel quite satisfied. But I felt there is a strong need to connect to science. So today I have decided to talk on three aspects of matter. One is there is a what you call as a standard model of particles. It is called SMPP, Standard Model of Particle Physics. So I'll first describe what are the essential points of modern physics as far as particles are concerned. Then there are a lot of papers on mystic revelation about particles, about matter, and of course Jainism. So these three things I would like to cover. And one thing I want to mention in the beginning, is that science is dividing particles one by one. They started with coarse matter and then made molecules and then to atoms and then quarks and so on. Now they are talking of subquarks. So it is by breaking that they are developing this theory. And the chain approach is different. They take Parmanu as the essential part and then build up the universe. So why these two approaches are important to discuss is that if you go on adding things, the sum is not equal to the sum of the parts, but it is little more. And that little more is getting lost. When you break something, you get new particles, but that little more is invisible and it gets lost. So there are a lot of problems. Now, I must confess that I don't know much about it, and I'm going to talk about a non traditional view. So please forgive me, and I request you to correct me if I make some wrong statements. Puri, I would like to share the screen. How do I do that now?
I have already made you co-host. You can.
Okay, so I will share the screen and give me a minute and uh, okay. Uh, so I'm going to talk about. Can you all see my screen, please? Purvi,
Yes.
you can see?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So Pud, everybody knows, means one which is created, and Gal is one which dissolves. So creation and dissolution is going on in matter, and Pudgal is a name equivalent to matter. This is just to introduce the subject. So I'll talk about.
Sir, full screen.
Uh,
Full screen. You
Sorry?
स्क्रीन को एनलार्ज कर दीजिए
सुनाई नहीं दिया मुझे.
full screen कीजिए सर.
फुल स्क्रीन नहीं है.
नहीं.
स्लाइड शो करूं.
हाँ स्लाइड शो कर दीजिए.
વાંધો નહીં મેં તો અર્જન્ટ કઈ નથી ને એટલા માટે ઓકે
व्यू में फुल स्क्रीन कीजिए व्यू में
व्यू में
We can enlarge it. We can enlarge it.
व्यू में फुल स्क्रीन कीजिए व्यू में
these things I should have learnt actually. व्यू में कुछ नहीं हो रहा है.
ये स्लाइड शो में जाके स्लाइड शो में
हाँ
Sir,
स्लाइड
एक
शो
minute.
कर देता हूँ.
हाँ स्लाइड शो में फ्रॉम बिगिनिंग
ओके.
फर्स्ट आइकन यस साइंस लो यहाँ होम के नीचे जो है ना प्ले फ्रॉम स्टार्ट होम के नीचे का बटन
Okay.
यस यस
So one is the standard model of particle physics, and other is there are some mystic description in Buddhism and Hinduism, and especially Annie Besant has written something. I'll talk about that, and I will also talk mostly on Jainism and taken things from Bhagavati Sutra and Samniji's thesis that gives a lot of information, but my view will be a non-traditional view. So please, I mean, I am not claiming that it is correct, but I want to put forth for your comments whatever I think is right. So let us okay, what standard model of particle physics says is very simple, that particles exist in three generations. There are three generations. There are quarks, there are leptons, and there are force carriers. There are three types of particles and three generation of them. So if you combine all of them, then we get 62 particles in all. So physics says that if you give 62 particles, they can build the whole universe, everything in the universe. I don't think that is right, but nonetheless, that is the standard model. It has been very successful, but it has its own problems, and I'll discuss that in detail. So there are 6 quarks to start with. They are given these arbitrary numbers. So quarks is a smaller part of proton or neutron. Neutron and protons are made by 3 quarks each. So one is up, other is down, other is strange, charm, bottom, and top. So these 6 quarks are there, and they come in 3 colors. So there are 18 of them. The color, these are all arbitrary names. It doesn't mean they have colors and they have charm and they have beauty and they have top and all this. But these are just to distinguish one from the other. We have to give name to a newborn child. Same way, when they discover a new particle, they give some name, and this is what they have given. But one need not take them literally, that up means something going up or down means down, or strange and charm. These are just names, not having any literal meaning. And red, blue, and green are also some names to say that there are 3 types of it. So there are 18 of this, 6 into 3. And then there are 6 what you call leptons. So electron is there, and a particle is there, neutrino. So electron and neutrino make a pair, and there are 3 pairs. Electron as second generation is muon and tau, and a new electron is this neutrino of electron neutrino, then mu neutrino, and then tau neutrino. So there are 6 of them. So this 18 and 6 become 24, and you know there is matter and antimatter. Antimatter is just made of antiparticles. That means if you have a proton which has a positive charge, then it will be negative. That is the antiparticle. Electron, if you have negative, then there is a positive electron is a antiparticle. So that become 48. 48 there. And then there are force carriers. We know there are 4 forces. One is a strong nuclear. That force everybody is familiar. This is the force which creates nuclear bombs. That Hiroshima and Nagasaki experienced a strong nuclear thing. All atom bombs are made of that. There is weak nuclear. This is the force through which the sun sends us light because of nuclear reactions there. And they are weak. So unlike the nuclear explosion, which happens in an instant, this sun is going to burn over 10 billion years or something. And then there is electromagnetic force, and then there is gravitation. So 4 forces are there. So there are what they call how this force is carried from one place to another. So strong nuclear is carried by gluons, which are 8. The weak nuclear is carried by these 3, W plus minus and Z0. And of course, photon, which the light we get, is the electromagnetic force that is same as electricity. So 12. So this becomes 60. And then you know all these particles, I talked about it last time in my Big Bang lecture, that particles, when they were generated, they had no mass. But they interacted with what you call as Higgs field. And of course, he got a Nobel Prize for this. So there is a Higgs field, and these are Higgs bosons, which give mass to particles. So electron, proton, neutron, all these didn't have mass. They were massless. They became massive after they were formed. And of course, this particle has not been discovered. Graviton, the particle which carries the gravitational force. The attempts are going on, and I think some people think that they found it. So 60 and 2 become 62. So these 62 particles, if you give to a physicist, he can make the whole universe. But of course, he's wrong, because there is no consciousness, there is no jeev, there is no, they don't talk of dharmastikaya, dharmastikaya, and time and so on. So this is only material part of the universe which can be made. Now, this is represented in the following fashion. These are the up, charm, and this six purple are the quarks. These are the leptons, and these are the gluons and photon and the charge carriers. So this is how the point I want to make is that 7 bosons are there, and they are the force carriers. Photon for electromagnetic force, W and Z0 for weak nuclear force, gluons for strong nuclear force, Higgs boson for mass, and graviton uh, for gravitational force. So this is the total component for the universe. Now, the point I want to make is that basically they can be divided into 2 types of particles, bosons and fermions. Now, what are bosons and what are fermions, that I'll discuss in little detail. If the spin is half, spin means it rotates like a lattu, that is half, then it is a fermion. If it is 0, 1, 2 integral multiple, then it is a boson. And this boson is a name given after Satyendranath Bose, whom some people say took his clue from Jain description of bosons, Jain description of Parmanus. The difference between fermions and boson is the following. Why I am going into detail is all these things are important as we come to Jain concept, and that is what is our main thrust today will be. The fermions are particles, they occupy space. So if there is a one fermion in one place, then there cannot be another fermion at the same place. But bosons are like Parmanus, 1 to infinite Parmanus or 1 to infinite bosons can occupy one single space. They do not create obstruction to another fellow. They can all coexist. And this is what is said in Bhagavati Sutra in our Agams, that infinite number of Parmanus occupy one Pradesh. And this is the type of particle. So for fermions, we have a principle which was given by Pauli. It is called Pauli exclusion principle, that 2 identical particles cannot be in the same place at the same time. So fermions follow this principle, but bosons don't follow. 2 identical bosons can be 2 or more, infinite, can be in the same place at the same time. And this is exactly what Parmanus are, and I think this has been discussed by many people, Kachara Saab and Samni ji and many others. So I think, please mute yourself. Please mute yourself.
Hello? Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
please
Sir.
mute yourself. Okay, now what is important is distribution of energy. If you have a box in which you put a lot of these particles, then how the energy will be distributed, that is what Satyendranath Bose found out. And that is called Bose-Einstein statistics. Einstein just was a late addition to this. And Fermi-Dirac statics is for fermions. And Parmanus follow Bose statics. They do not occupy any space. So this we have discussed already. So you see, half of the universe is made of bosons and the other half of fermions. So they are very important particles. I don't want to go into all these equations and everything, but nonetheless, for completeness sake, I'll say that if you have a large number of bosons, see this red curve here, then number of particles who have maximum energy will be very, maximum number of particles will have low energy, and as the energy is increasing, the number of particles will decrease like this. And as you reach very high energy, the particles will be very few. This is called Bose statistics. In fermions, it is the other way around. All the particles have the same energy, and then high energy particles decrease very quickly. I'm sorry for this change of slide. So we must remember this. And if you have different type of particles, then they follow this, what is known as Maxwell-Boltzmann thing, that the distribution is like this. That number of particles nonetheless decrease with energy. So if you have 1,000,000 particles in one pradesha, maybe more than half will have a very low energy and very few will have very high energy. The distribution in energy as a function of particles. So if you live in one house, we can say that people have money, some will have more, some will have less. Like that, energy is distributed. Now, this energy depends on temperature. And you see this curve changes at 150 degree, it is very steep, then becomes flatter and flatter. Now, there's a very small difference of this +1 and this -1 in distribution. But that is what makes all the difference. So this is the SMPP model. It is very successful, but it has several problems. What is the first and most important problem is matter-antimatter is not equal. We are all made of matter. Whereas it is produced in equal amount in Big Bang theory, matter is equal to antimatter. God knows where this antimatter is gone. We don't know. We haven't found it. And we are all made of matter. But if you take matter and mix with antimatter, it will explode even much stronger than a nuclear bomb. So where is this antimatter? That is one of the problems which the standard model is not going to explain. But I'll show later on that our Jain model explains it. The other problem is neutrino oscillation. Three types of neutrinos, I said, are there. They come from the sun. They are produced in the sun and come to earth, but they keep on exchanging on the way. One becomes like the other, and they change their form, and that is called neutrino oscillation. They oscillate between the three forms. That is not explained. Then there is something dark matter, I'll come to it, which cannot be explained. Dark energy has a repulsive force that cannot be explained. And the mathematical framework of this SMPP is inconsistent with general relativity. I talked about general relativity last time, and you know it has been very successful. It changes the fabric of space, and the mathematical framework is such that either the general relativity will break down, or the standard model will break down. When you have a big bang, what happened at that point? Or you have a black hole, then what happens at that point? So like this, there are many problems. So it is a good model to work with, but not a perfect model. Now I come to Jain model, which I call JMPP, Jain model of particle physics. Now this is, it says the Parmanu is not matter. Parmanu is not matter, but all matter is made of Parmanus. Now this is little bit difficult for us to understand, but this is true, and I'll come to it. And the whole loka is packed with Parmanus. In every pradesha, there are lots of Parmanus because it is dimensionless and it is a boson. So everywhere there are millions and millions of Parmanus. And all matter is made of Parmanus by aggregation. And Parmanus can be formed by disaggregation or disintegration of aggregates. Something breaks down, Parmanus will be formed. And all Jain model is all inclusive. It is not like what you call a standard model, which is only for physical matter. The Jain model contains clues for biological, psychological, and spiritual, all three entities. So some Varganas, they form by Varganas, and I think Kachara Saab has done a lot of work on this, are physical. Some are biological, like Bhasha Vargana, Aharak Vargana, and Pratyek Vargana, and some are psychological, like Mano Vargana and Karma Vargana. So, in scope, of course, Jainism is much more sound and wide and broad in its scope, but nobody cares, you know, and this is, I think, our problem. We are not putting before the world things in a proper way. We don't connect, and that is actually the main aim of my talk today. I think we should be able to do it if we all do little work, because all the concepts are already there. So clues for all this can be found in rules of aggregation and disaggregation Parmanus, and I'll talk about this at the end. Now, of course, there are many problems with Jain model too. Let me not say that this is perfect and we are great. Either we don't understand it, or there are some deficiency, or as I would like to say, that the Tirthankars didn't say things, didn't say everything. They only said what was asked of them. So maybe many components are missing. So biggest flaw in Jain model is they don't talk about forces, neither nuclear nor electromagnetic nor gravity. Now, this is a big deficiency, and we must understand why it is there. But they mention two things, Dharmastikaya and Adharmastikaya, which the science doesn't recognize. They started with ether, but they discarded ether last century with the experiment of Michelson and Morley. So, are these two some kind of forces? That is what our Amit Jain and some other people are also claiming, that maybe dharma is a repulsive force and dharma is a attractive force. Now, this is all speculation. Nobody will believe or care about it, even if we say, unless we prove it. So here we must distinguish, of course, I talked about it, SMPP and JMPP. The Jain model approach is synthesis of Parmanus, and the physics model is breakup of Parmanus. And the sum is more than parts, because that there is something called binding energy, and there are some other things which get eliminated and some get acquired. So if you don't, I mean, there is going to be bound to be some problems with them. Now I come to the third thing about the mystic description. And I think this is very important to understand. The latest and most scientific, of course, it talked about in Vishnu Puran and this and that, and all granths and many Hindu granths, Bauddha granths. They are all more or less similar. It's only a matter of interpretation and completeness. Some are more complete than others. But I'll confine to Annie Besant's work. Annie Besant, about 100 years ago, wrote a book called Occult Chemistry. And Pokharna Sahab brought it to me, and my first impression was it is all pseudoscience, and I was prepared to throw it in the dustbin. But Pokharna Sahab very excited about it, and he said, you go through it, and I went through it. And if what they say is right, then they have made lots of predictions which came out to be right later on. They were not known. And I have worked with some of them, like Krypton 81 and tritium and some radioisotopes. So that was mentioned in 1907 when they were not even discovered. And I was wondering how they did it. And then we came across a paper which came in a journal called Physics Letters. That is the top-notch paper in physics. And I said, well, if it is referred in Physics Letters, something must be there into it. So I studied and found lots of, I was flabbergasted that how they could do it. They say the space is filled densely with ether. Now, ether was rejected. So, very first sentence, you feel a repulsion because science doesn't accept that ether exists. Matter is the hole in the fabric of ether. What is matter? It is a hole. It is not made of matter. That is what say. I'll come to this in a minute. And astral and there is an invisible astral plane which governs all the processes in the physical world. Now we have this physical world, we are familiar, but all these processes are not governed by causality and we apply the force and some activity will, some action will ensue and all that is our thinking. But what they say is that there is a parallel astral plane below it, somewhere invisible. And that governs this physical world. मतलब अपने हाथ में कुछ है नहीं, ये कहाँ से होता है, I don't know. Then astral and physical planes are in continuous interaction through worlds, some kind of vortices. A life force, they call a life force. I don't know why life is coming here in matter, because we are always taught that life or jiva doesn't originate in matter. But they named it Fohat and comes out from the astral plane into the physical world, creating a world. And this world is male Anu. I'll just explain it. You bear with me till I read it out, this slide. And goes back to the astral plane through another Anu. Now, let me first show you the Anu, what they say. Anu is like this. There are two Anus, one is male and other is female. As the force comes through this and goes around this and then goes back to the astral plane. This is what they are trying to explain. Now, this is very funny, that everything in our world is controlled by an astral plane. We know people have written about astral body. We also, Jainism, talk about astral, that Tejas Sharir, that astral body, which the metabolic body that has all the energy and prana and heart. I was always wondering, even as a, when I took up this science, that how the heart goes on pumping all the time. Who pumps it? Because this is against the principle of entropy, that you cannot have a perpetually working machine. You cannot have something which will go on working all the time. Where from this comes? And of course, doctors don't give me a correct answer. Maybe Sancheti Saab can explain that how this pran, that is our breathing, and how our heart, and of course all body functions, who controls it? They of course know how it is controlled, how hormones are given and how they act and all the chemical reactions and how we become deficient without hormones. But how we feel thirsty, I mean, who makes us feel thirsty? So there is some astral plane, and if Bohm says that there is an implicate order behind the physical order, then everybody believes. But if we say that if there is an astral plane behind the physical plane, then nobody believes. And I think something is wrong with us. So matter is made of Anu. That is what Annie Besant says. But Anu is not matter. Now, this is same as Parmanu. Parmanu is not matter because it has no material particle in it. It is only space. And same is about Anu. But both give rise to matter. Matter is made of Anu as well as Parmanu, so both must be same. And they say Anu has electric, thermal, and optical properties. The Anu has a boundary, but the boundary has no structure. Normally, we think our house has a boundary, means there is a wall, there is outside of the boundary, and there is an inside of the boundary. But they say that there is no outside or inside. It is not like a soap bubble in the air. Soap bubble has a film of soap. Inside is air and outside is air, and the soap bubble has a layer of the bubble has a thickness, finite thickness. There is no such a thing. That is what they say. And the two sides, fluid wall is not there, but it is like a air bubble in water. If you have water and there's an air bubble, then it has no wall. Only that water serves as a wall. It contains the bubble. So same thing is happening. This was very striking to me, that Parmanus have no middle, no sides, no wall, no outside, but still it is an entity. So there is a lot of similarity between them. And the worlds contain three coarse worlds and 7 fine worlds. So there are 10 worlds in all, and some smaller 7 still finer worlds. So I just want to show you this again. These 3 are the coarse and the 7 are the finer, and each of them has further subdivisions and so on. Now they go on forever. Now how something can go on forever? Now this is contrary to the laws of physics. Where from that energy comes? So one thing was very clear to me, that you need a superconductor. If you have this electric property or a conducting property, then it has to be a superconductor to be able to these worlds to be working all the time. And please, if you have any problems, I request you to question me in the middle, because now it is going to become increasingly controversial. I'm going to present things which I think not many Jain scholars would believe. Because the problem with the Jain scholars is that they are also Jain practitioners. So they don't deviate from their, agams, many of them. And of course, all those acharyas and munis and samnis, they stand by agams. But I don't have any such inhibition. So I'll tell you something else. Which
May I ask you one question here?
Yes, sir.
I have 2 things to ask. Number 1, you have told that there are lot many particles, bosons, with different energies. So my question is, say one particle of higher energy can be reduced into lower energy or not? This is first question. And
the particle is not reduced, but they can exchange the energy. But still the distribution will be same. The particle A will give energy to B, and B will occupy in that curve the position of A.
Okay.
So exchange of energy takes place. That is called partition of energy.
Okay, it is okay. And second question is, you have made a statement that Parmanu is not matter. I think it is not in Jainism. Because
it's not. No, but Jainism, I am just going to explain to you. So Parmanu is not matter in the sense that it is not a material particle. That is what it is written in the Agams.
By definition, if you keep on striking hammer on the matter and keep on making it smaller and smaller and come to a point where you can't make further division, that is called Parmanu. It means it is matter.
It is Pudgal. It is Pudgal. They say that Pudgal means one which is created and which dissolves. And
right.
Parmanu is not matter, but matter is made of Parmanu. Now, this is something which we can debate.
Okay.
This is, but this is what my concept is. And we can discuss it later on because this will
Okay,
take
sir.
time. This,
Okay,
is,
sir.
this is a very controversial point, but very valid point you have made. So, but this is how the things are, you know. So this black thing here is ether, and this white little spot is the koilon. They call it koilon. Koilon means this is that bubble out of which matter is made, and this comes out and it creates the anu. This is not anu. This is the father of anu. Anu is made from this, but not made of this. Now these things are little difficult to understand, but if you believe in me, let us proceed. But these points are important to remember, that koilon is a hole in the ether. Koilon is not matter, but anu is made of by koilons, but not made of koilons. Okay. So with this thing, I like to proceed. I think my main thing is still far off. Now, these are the anus, male and female, and what Annie Besant said, and I think many scholars here present have worked on this, Dr. Pokharna and Dr. Kachara and maybe many others. But this is a brief history. It is not without a history. It started in 1878, and then this Annie Besant in 1895 to 1951. The second edition was published. Actually, it was written in 1907, and then Hodgson. And then this is the paper I refer to, Stephen Phillips, a report on recent clairvoyant observations of some atomic particles, composite quarks, and hadron-lepton unification. It came in Physics Letters, which I said is the top paper in physics. So I was really impressed. Now, he's, of course, Stephen Phillips is trying to prove his theory, taking this Annie Besant's formulation. But you see, what physicists are trying to do is, they ultimately want a theory of everything, which they have failed to make. They think there should be only one force which give rise to four forces. There should be one particle which gave rise to all the particles. There should be just something one, and if they know all the properties and processes of this one, then this is the theory of everything. So, like Maxwell combined electricity and magnetism and made it electromagnetism, and Abdul Salam combined this weak force and electromagnetic force, and try to develop a theory like this. They are trying to unite. They think ultimately there will be one force, there will be one particle, and there will be one equation which will explain everything. So this is the ultimate goal. Let us see how we can proceed. So now, what is the problem with our Jain model is that it does not mention all the forces I said. It says quark is very coarse. Some people use the word subtle, but subtle is a very mysterious word. It can mean anything. And Parmanus form several varganas, that is skand, that is aggregates, we can call it. 23 of them, which will give you all types of biological, physical, psychological, and spiritual capabilities. So this is much more thorough. I don't understand why this group, we cannot all work and give some equations and some theory. And can we not? This is the question I'm asking. Why we cannot build those 62 particles which the physicists stand by from our Parmanus? Those 62 particles are real. We should be able to take Parmanus join them in whatever way, by whatever equations, by whatever forces, and give them 62 particles, then people will believe in our theory. But we are not doing that. We work in isolation. We say we are the greatest and we know everything, and that is enough. We don't have to worry how it works, but that is not true. So now I come to Parmanus, because that is the main thrust. They are assigned 5 colors, 5 tastes, 2 types of smells, and 8 types of touches. Now I have a lot of problems here. Why these 5 colors? They were surely knowing that there are 7 primary colors in rainbow. I'm sure the people who wrote Agams knew that there are 7 primary colors. They don't say that there are 7 types of Parmanus. They say only blue, yellow, and red, because white and black are not colors. Black means a thing which looks black, means absorbs everything. And white means a thing which reflects everything, doesn't absorb anything. So they only give something which doesn't absorb. So there is a Parmanu which doesn't absorb anything. It is transparent. When they say color, this is also a misnomer. Color, we should say optical properties rather than color. So Parmanus have optical properties. There is a kind of Parmanu which absorbs everything. It looks black to us because it has absorbed. And there is one which doesn't absorb, reflects everything, doesn't absorb everything. So it looks white, because white is made of 7 colors. So they basically take only 3 colors. And they know that there were 7 colors. In Vibgyor, we know violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red, because they always depict sun as moving on 7 horses. And that is interpreted as 7 colors of light. So it is not their ignorance which is responsible for it. Please pardon me if I use my poor English, so I don't know appropriate words sometimes. But then the problem comes is that Lachias, they say, is 6 types. I don't know why Lachias cannot be of 7 types when we know 7 colors are there. And these are only of 5 types. So there is something here, and we must understand it. And now black is not a color, I have discussed. These are also not the color of Lachias, which gives 6 things: black, blue, gray, red, yellow, and white. So white is again colorless. That is the most pure Lachia. And black is the most impure Lachia. And this is actually absorbs all our various colors of psychology, psychic colors, and becomes black. So Parmanus have all shades of colors, smell, taste, but selective in touch. But it has everything. So there may be infinite numbers, because every wavelength can be 1 Parmanu and so on. But they are selective in touch qualities, have either 2, 4, or 8. Now this is also a little bit strange to me. So now Parmanus have optical property, I will say, not color, taste, smell, and touch, but not sound. You see, this point is that our sensory organs. Now, this is a very fundamental point I am making. Our sensory organs developed not because of Darwin's evolutionary theory that we have to smell to survive, but because these Parmanus have the smell, the innate quality, and we are made of Parmanus. So this appears to be a very fundamental concept. And why we cannot work on it, I'll come to this at the end. Please, you will give me some more time, I guess, today. Because, living beings also have corresponding sensory organs, but they don't have ears, but we have ears. And why Parmanus don't have sound quality? This is again something baffling. Now, sound is, we can only speculate that Parmanus do not have an innate property of sound, but when two large group of Parmanus acquire the quality of mass, so they will acquire, as I'll show now, a property of mass at some stage, and then collide, and then they will develop the property of sound. Thus, here I think Kachara Sahab had one day made some short remark. I'll like to hear that at the end. What he said, I vaguely remember, but he has worked on this problem, so we'd like to be enlightened on this particular point. But the sound is a property of skandhas, and human auditory system is a consequence of the property of skandhas developed last. That's why the hearing and the ears develop last. So the rule number one I come to is, we owe our sensory organs to Parmanus and not to Paramatma. I think once I was giving talking about this thing to an audience, then they say, you are talking nonsense. I said, why? Because this is not written in Agams. So I really, I mean, nobody explains this, but I just told him that Mahavir Swami never said, don't use your head. So I'm just trying to use my head. It may be wrong. At the end of this talk, you may say I'm wrong, but nonetheless, I must point out what I understand from what is written in Agams and compare it with this thing. So there's another very serious problem, and I spent a lot of time trying to understand it. They say there are 8 touch qualities. I think most of you know this. I know some people have worked on this, so they are experts in this. One is called Thanda and other is called Garam. One is called Snigdha and other is called Ruksh. One is called Mridu and other is called Kathor. And one is called Halka and other is called Bhari. Now, this makes no sense to me. I think Samniji would know better, but let me say what I want to know. I want to say. These both make a thermal property. There is only one property. There are not two properties. Thanda and Garam are part of the same property we call thermal property. Similarly, Snigdha and Ruksh, I don't know, somebody converted Snigdha to positive charge and Ruksh to negative charge or whatever. And they call it electric properties. I couldn't find anywhere that it is the electrical property. In the Agams, it is a later addition. But of course, somewhere they mention in Sarvat Siddhi, I read that there is Vidyut. So they obviously knew about Vidyut. But that doesn't make that the Paramanus are. How can something have charge without having a mass? That is, electrons we know, protons we know all the particles have charge, but they have mass. They exist as particles. Then we know they can have electrical charge. But like space cannot have just a free floating charge. It has to be on something. Then Mridu and smooth. I'm sorry, but this Hindi has been translated into English: cold, hot, positive charge, negative charge. Mridu is smooth and Kathor is hard. And Halka is, of course, light and Bhari is heavy. So there are 4 properties only: thermal, electrical, viscosity, and mass. Okay. So 8 properties we have reduced to 4 properties. But there's no calibration scale. What do we call as Thanda and Garam, Mridu and Kathor, Halka and Bhari, without a calibration scale? You should say that 0.5 gram is heavy above this and below 0.5 gram is light, then I'll believe it. So I don't believe in this kind of thing. This makes no sense to me. So there are 2 problems. The pair is the same as property and no calibration scale is given. Now, how do I understand this? I think there is only one cold temperature. Samniji, please correct me if there is something wrong. But please bear with me if I am saying something different. Okay?
Yes, we want to understand you first and then we will see what we can say. Yeah.
Okay, that's very good. But I would like to have your opinion.
Yeah.
Because
Because-
this is very important. And if we follow this, we'll arrive at some point. So there is only one point which I can call zero or cold, and that is 0 degree Kelvin. Everything else is hot. 1 degree Kelvin to 10 to the power 32 degrees, which the Big Bang acquires, is all hot. So there are two kinds of Parmanus. One is at 0 degree Kelvin, and one is at any temperature, any other temperature up to the maximum. Similarly, I define what happens. Let us first talk before I come to the other things. What happens at 0 degree Kelvin? That is the absolute zero. The scientists say, Lord Kelvin has said long time ago, that nobody can go below 0 degree Kelvin. That is the absolute zero. And what happens is but it doesn't mean that there is no motion. Motion is energy. So energy doesn't become zero. It is the external energy. Every particle, and this is called enthalpy. Please take it as a black box. Enthalpy H is given by internal energy U, and external energy is pressure into volume. Pressure becomes zero, this becomes zero, so energy becomes equal to internal energy. So still the Parmanu will rotate, spin, or whatever it is doing, but it won't move linearly, it won't go and strike another Parmanu. So external energy becomes zero, vibration becomes zero, everything becomes zero except its internal motions. And the resistance becomes zero, it becomes superconductor. Because at 0 degree Kelvin, everything becomes superconductor. Electricity flows freely without any hindrance. It can go on forever. And there I want to draw your attention to those walls I talked about. They are going forever. So they are made of superconducting threads. Particles which are in a thread and are superconductors, so they can go on all the time forever. They never cease. And entropy, which is the extractable useful work, you understand, is zero. That means you cannot extract work from particles which are at 0 degrees. There's no Brownian motion and no collision with the wall. But internal motion is there. Now, if you can ask these questions, I may realize that some of you may not be familiar with this, but this is very important. Now, taking the same thing for Snigdha and Ruksh, light and heavy, this light everybody has taken as a massless. I don't know why they are partial to this particular property of touch. Light everybody has taken as massless, because science has discovered two types of particles, massless and with mass. And Snigdha and Ruksh. Now, Snigdha means essentially one which is smoothly going through. And Ruksh is one which is having some hardness or difficulty. Now, we know from physics that a positive and negative particle, they behave identically in all matters, except in a magnetic field, because one will turn left and other will turn right. But in absence of magnetic field, by passage through matter or any interaction, they behave identically. So one cannot be Snigdha and other cannot be Ruksh. So I devise here three particles. One is neutral, one is positive, and one is negative. Positive and negative are Ruksh because they are hard, they are difficult to pass through anything. But neutral can pass without electrical. You know, when particles pass through any matter, they ionize it, they have energy loss, they have many phenomena of collisions, exchange of charge. but a neutral particle can smoothly go through matter without, of course, it will lose energy, but not through ionization, not through other processes. So I call neutral particles as snigdh and positive and negative particles as ruksh. And the beauty is that soft and hard, again, there is no scale on this. So one is superfluid. Soft means which is superfluid. A fluid which is a superfluid, I call it soft, and other is with all viscosity from lowest to highest. So you see, I have redefined all this, and if you have, I'm sure all of you will not agree, or most of you will not agree, but this is what I think makes sense to me, because there is no calibration scale. I asked some people, they said to humans what is cold and what is hot is hot. I thought that also doesn't make any sense to me, because humans have different temperatures at different times, and you can't have hot and cold changing all the time. So this is the summary of 8 touch particles. 8 touch properties can be defined and distinguished logically based on modern material science. Thermal means that two things: cold is 0 degree Kelvin, hot is any other temperature. 0 degree Kelvin is also superconductor. Electrical is 3: neutral, positive, and negative. And mass is massless. And I, in absence of any proper word, I call it mass con, because con in Italian means with. So instead of saying with mass, I say mass con. So there are 2 types of particles, massless and mass con. And viscosity, one is superfluid and one is viscous fluid. So these 8 touch properties are actually 4 properties giving rise to 9 classes of particles. So taking this view, we find that there can be 5 colors, 5 tastes, 2 smells, and 9 touch properties give 450 particles in all. And with various subgrades, they are actually infinite in number. It has been stated that the whole universe is fully packed with Parmanus, just as with the souls also. And Parmanus can have only 2 touch properties, thermal and electrical. So we can have in all 6 major types of Parmanus. Yes, 1 minute, please. 3 superconducting, and we call this type A matter. Yes, any question there? Or please mute yourself. Or if you have a question, please unmute yourself. Please mute yourself. So now we have 4 touch properties. And there are a lot of phenomena which science is not explaining. And people keep on telling that, Jainism is better than science, and maybe it is true, but we have to prove it. The proof of pudding is in the eating. So what I would say is, what are the phenomena we have to explain in nature? One is aura. Other is biophoton. Third is leshya. Then karman, sharir, bhav, karma. These are all matter, pudgals, material particles. And there are 3 types: shuddha, shubh, and ashubh. And of course, no karma is there. Then when uday takes place, so we have to have a karma clock is there. So I am looking from physics point of view. No, I am told कि जब कर्म का उदय होता है, जब ये होता है, भाई उदय क्यों होता है? कोई घड़ी लगी हुई है अंदर, तो एक घड़ी है वहाँ which tracks it. So this is a घड़ी also, and we have to make this. Then karma bandh or gati ghati karma and aghati karma. I will go fast because I think, running short of time, and you will lose patience. Then mind, memory, subconscious, superconscious mind, Gyan, Mati Gyan, Avdhi Gyan, Man Parya Gyan, Tejas Sharir, Pran and heart I talked about, Vakraik Sharir, Aharak Sharir, Vargana, Grahya and Agrahya Varganas, Yog, Upyog, and what are the consequences of Tap, Labdi, and then our George Sudarshan had postulated tachyons which move with a speed higher than light, then dark matter and dark energy. So all these, and there are many more you can add to this list are done by particles. And science has truly not found these particles. And in Jainism, we have these particles. And I'll try to explain. So maybe Anil Saab, tell me when I should stop, because I don't want to, So we have three types of particles now out of all this. One is superconductor and neutral, superconductor and positive, superconductor negative. One with the resistance and mobile. Mobile means it has some thermal energy, neutral and like this. So two touch matter has repulsive force. Now, if I go through these various agams, Tattvartha Sutra, Sarvartha, whatever that thing, and Bhagavati Sutra, and I think Kachara Sahab has given a table, Samni has given in our article 4 or 5 tables. Then one Parmanu doesn't combine with another Parmanu even if their charge is opposite. So this means they have a repulsive force between them, because positive and negative charge will attract, and the very fact that they don't combine means there is a repulsive force between them. And the universe is full of this repulsive force because it is full of Parmanu. And that, I think, is giving rise to the expansion of the universe. And Tejas Sharir, how the pran keeps on beating heart. So all this is because of superconducting particles. Now, I must actually rush because I will go. If you take these 4 touch particles by combining, then you get 24 such particles. Some are superconducting, neutral, superfluid, and massless. They can go anywhere. Some are superconductive, positive, negative. Some are have thermal energy but superfluid. Some are viscous. Some are massless. All these are massless. All these have a mass. This mass con means with mass, viscous, neutral. So I get these 24 types of particles. And believe it or not, we can discuss it again. We have then C type of particles. When these 4 touch particles, these Chatursparshiya particles, which I produce from Parmanus, again get together, they make 8 touch particles, and those are our luminous universe, what we see. You and me and stars and sky and earth and rocks and trees. So each type of particle has a particular function, which is physical, psychological, or spiritual. And I have given the functions we have to explain, and I have given particles which I can produce, and I can sit down and say which particle is appropriate for which process, and I have done this exercise. And this is the summary. I will not have this time on this, but I'll go to the thing. Last point. This is what I wanted to say, that this I have taken from somewhere, from Prajnapannavanna Sutra, Uttaradhyayan, Churni and Bhagavati. One Parmanu cannot meet and join another Parmanu, whether they are similar or opposite. That means there is a force between them which is repulsive. But 2 plus 2 can do, 2 plus 4 can do, 2 plus infinite can do. So these are the ones which give the other processes, and these are the ones which give the expansion of the universe by the, so then there is a, in physics, in atomic physics, we have learned there is a odd even effect. And if you want, I'll take your question time to discuss this. But I'll conclude here by saying that if you take abundance of cosmic abundance, what we call in meteorites or in sun or in stars, then one particle is high, one is low, next one is low. So odd is low, even is high, odd is low, even is high, and this is the type of distribution. And this is exactly what you find in this table, why this odd even effect is there. This is odd and this is even. So I try to connect this, and I think I must confess that some work remains to be done. I couldn't finish it. So this is the formation of aggregate of particles, and science has come up with three types of material. One is the visible universe, that is C type of particle, that is only 5%, 4.9%. I talked about it last time, so I need not discuss more. Other is this Chatursprshiya particle, which 27%, and one are Parmanus. This is my assignment, which is 68%. So this will explain many phenomena, but people will not believe unless you work out the mathematics, the processes, the formulas, and experiments to prove it. So my final conclusion is sensory organs originate because these are innate qualities in Parmanu and not because of Darwinian evolution. Darwinian evolution is always monodirectional, going up to the ladder. That means one sense becomes 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 5, and so on. But there is no devolution. But Jainism says there is a devolution. A cow can become an ant can become a tree, and so on. So this part is missing. This we can explain, because if Karman Sharira is made of certain particles, and I will explain it in question time, I think, but let me close. Jain philosophy allows two-way changes, evolution and devolution, based on the type of Parmanus and make Karman body. And Annihilation model agrees in many aspects of Jain theory of particle physics. Type A, B, C play a critical role in many physical, psychological, spiritual processes, and in luminous matter, dark matter, and dark energy. So I must say thank you very much for bearing with me. This is altogether untraditional explanation, but I'm very happy about it because it explains lots of things. And I invite you to, it is not one man's job. I am not an expert either in Jainism or in particle physics, but I am trying to combine the two. And I would now invite, if there are any, I mean, I'm sure there will be many criticisms and comments, but anything which is obviously wrong, I'm prepared to withdraw it, but otherwise I'll stand by it the way I understand. Anil sir, I hand it
Thank
over
you
to
very
you.
much for your excellent
Fire.
presentation, and really it is very thoughtful and it opens lot many avenues. And now there are some questions. One is from Dr. Dharamchand Jain.
Only one?
Please ask your
I'm
question.
surprised.
I have some questions.
Yes, please. Please wait for your turn, please.
मैं आदरणीय प्रोफेसर भंडारी साहब को धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा, जिन्होंने विज्ञान और एनिफिसेंट और